Welcome.
Welcome to Switching Reels.
I was going to say that. Hi, Trenton.
Hi, Connor. How are you?
I'm doing well.
It's a spooky season.
It must be.
It's a spooky time of year. Got an orange thing for spook. For Spooktember.
What orange thing?
This orange thing.
Oh.
It's orange.
It's red. It's red more than it's orange.
It's orange. Nothing can be red after the movie we just watched. Unfortunately. It's a law.
And what did we watch today, Trenton?
We just watched Carrie.
Yeah, we sure did.
Very old, not very old, kind of old.
I mean, it was 74, I think.
That's pretty old.
Yeah.
It was 20 years before I was born.
Yeah.
It's held up pretty well for 20 years before I was born.
Also, happy Halloween. I assume this is coming to you on Halloween.
That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah.
That's 50 years, actually.
Yeah.
Happy 50-year anniversary, Carrie.
Yeah. What did you think of the movie?
It was intense in, like, a couple ways, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, it does a really good job of being very intense. And I'm looking forward to talking about themes and everything.
I will say this one is hard to talk about without spoilers.
Yeah, there's basically nothing you can say.
Because the things that you can say about it that aren't spoilers are also the things that make it the movie that it is.
Yeah.
The spoilers are the thing that make it the movie that it is.
I was going to say, like, wait, then why can't we talk about it?
No.
No, I completely agree with you.
I will say, for people that haven't seen this movie, it is definitely worth a watch if you have any desire to understand, like, how horror came about as a movie genre. It is also, I think, a pretty good entry point to Stephen King as a horror author.
That makes total sense. Wait, was this a Stephen King movie or book?
This was his first book.
Whoa. Yeah. Okay. Things make more sense. You always tell me something like that after a very intense movie like this, and I'm like, oh.
And it just clicks.
Yeah. Like how Seven was made in the 90s.
Yeah.
You know, where it's just like, oh, it's that like little shift.
That feels like one that shouldn't make that much of a difference.
But it did.
Yeah.
Boy, did it. So.
But yeah, I mean, this is one I would highly recommend. And we will get into why probably as we get into it.
Yeah. If you are not a fan of like really strange religious over undertones, maybe don't do it, and like casual violence and nudity, but that's it.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, as someone who doesn't like Christian iconography to begin with, like as a Christian iconography bothers me.
Nice.
The one thing that bothers me more than Christian iconography is the defamation of Christian iconography. And this movie does not bother me that much.
Crazy.
Okay, I feel we'll get into it.
Yeah, this is gonna be
but I feel like it does what it's supposed to do, and it does it well in a way that doesn't feel any more blasphemous than I already feel Christian iconography is.
Just in general. Nice.
So, yeah.
Beautiful. Where did you put this on enjoyment and technical? And spooky.
So this one is really, really hard for me to rate.
Okay.
For a number of reasons. I think that it has a ton of really, really minor imperfections. I also think it has a ton of things that it has no business being so perfect in.
Yeah.
And as a result, it feels like it kind of cancels out, but if I think too much about one side of it, then it completely shifts
or drains it.
Yeah. I will say, as an enjoyment piece, I think this one probably ends up at like, I can't believe I'm jumping an entire number here, but This is a high 8 to a low 10 for me.
Whoa! That's crazy.
Yeah, and I think, and one of the things I said to you about this is one of those movies that to me illustrates that a really great horror movie doesn't necessarily have to be that spooky.
Yeah.
This one doesn't feel very scary to me.
Yeah.
But the amount of just energy emanating off of this is so high that I think you have a really hard time saying that it's a bad horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
Or even that it's a bad movie.
Yeah.
But, like, this isn't one of those, like, I don't know. There are movies like Seven where I would be like, that one's not a horror movie.
No. That's just a suspense.
It's a suspense movie that gives you a lot of those kind of feelings. This one's a horror movie, like, undoubtedly. And yet, it's not scary. I would say Seven is scarier than this.
Yeah, I would agree that Seven is scarier than this. Like, more terrifying.
Yeah.
I would agree.
So,
how spooky is it?
How spooky is it? It's definitely more spooky than not spooky. So, I can't go below 5.
Nope.
But I'm not willing to go above.
Too much higher.
I think this is a strong 6 to a light 7.
Yeah.
As far as spookiness.
Scale.
Yeah.
There's your spook scale, everyone.
Yeah.
For me, I would agree, like, technical is really hard on this one.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to put it at a 5, and you'll watch it and you'll understand. And
yeah, that's fair.
Then enjoyment is probably, like a fairly solid 8. Like,
yeah.
Not a disenjoyable movie.
I would push back against your technical. Even after
I was just putting one there.
Okay,
Connor.
well, even after saying how conflicted I am on this, I don't think any of the imperfections are enough to say that this is a below average film as far as the way that it's shot or the way that it conveys things.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I would say 5 maybe isn't fair. It should go higher than that at least.
Average.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not below average.
No. I'm saying you can't go too average with this movie. It has to be bumped up higher than that.
Fine, it gets a 7.
Okay, fair enough.
And on the spooky scale, not the scary scale, the spooky scale.
Well, I guess if the spooky scale is not the scary scale,
it's a spooky scale.
I might go up to a strong 7 to a light 8.
Yeah, I was thinking like
case.
a 7 or an 8 as well. On the it's because it's spooky. There's some spooky things that go on, and only like one scary thing.
Yeah, I would say there's a couple of scary things.
Yeah, only one real scary thing.
Yeah, that's true. That scary thing is extended to a certain length of time that is significant.
Yeah. Ooh.
Especially when you consider this movie is less than 100 minutes long.
Yeah, that was really short.
Yeah.
I was engaging it in my brain so I could figure out when we were going to make popcorn, and I was like, wait, the story structure tells me we're almost to the climax.
Yeah.
And I haven't been sitting here for very long.
But no, this one for me, when I first saw it, did not land as like, hey, this should be an essential horror movie. And yet I've watched it the last 3 years for my Halloween movie stuff. Not every movie makes that list.
No. I think this one has some of the like archetype. Like it is very Halloween coded.
Yeah, that's true.
Like there's something about it that's like, this is for when you're going to watch something spooky.
Yeah. This I've put in the same, I don't know if you've seen Beetlejuice, but I put it in the same category of like, this is a great kickoff to my my kind of horror movie watching month.
That's fantastic.
Or the day. So what I tend to do, this is just me being me.
Do it.
But I tend to ramp up through October.
Mm-hmm.
All the way until about the 25th, and I start to get a little burnt out. And then on Halloween itself, I ramp up again. I start low, and I watch scarier things the further through I get.
That's funny.
So this one and Beetlejuice have both been Halloween starter movies. Like
Nice.
the ones that I do while I'm carving a pumpkin before I watch the rest of my spooky movies
Nice.
for the night. And I usually, bake the pumpkin seeds and everything.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever done that.
Wait, you've never baked pumpkin seeds?
I mean, it makes sense that you would bake pumpkin seeds, but I have never actually gone and used the insides of a pumpkin for really anything.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing with pumpkin seeds. We're going to go completely off of the fact that this is...
It's a special episode. We get to do whatever we want.
Pumpkin seeds have virtually no taste and kind of an unpleasant texture to them.
Okay.
So what you do is you take whatever spices you feel like you want to just eat plain.
Nice. Okay.
And you put them on the pumpkin seeds, and then you bake them.
Is there like a cracker then?
Yeah, essentially.
Like just a very, very plain cracker.
And then you eat them through the entirety of your Halloween
Shenanigans.
movie night.
Yeah.
Which everyone has, right?
Obviously.
Everyone takes off a day from work to have half a day where they carve pumpkins, watch horror movies, and then another half a day on November 1st so that they don't have to go into work so early.
Yeah, every person. I don't know
every single person does that.
Do that, actually.
But anyway, that's what you do.
I basically came out of I was a small infant and I was like, oh yes, I am only 2 months old, but I must stop my work to watch a horror film.
You were the children that were yearning for the mines, weren't you?
I was one of those children that was yearning for the mines, and I must return. Give me a canary, that is all that I need.
I'm just gonna point out that the largest children's game of the last 15 or so years has been Minecraft.
Yeah, or you're just going into mines.
Yeah,
the children yearn for them.
They do.
They do.
Send them all to Tennessee, straight into the coal mines.
Exactly. Wait, aren't those on fire?
Right now?
There's a certain set of coal mines that's always on fire.
That doesn't sound like a very effective coal mine.
I would agree.
Either that or it's too effective.
It puts a lake on top of it so that you can make a dome over it so you can do steam power. This is off kilter.
Yeah.
I
mean, all of our Halloween episodes are.
They always are. Goodness gracious.
I think it's time to jump over the spoiler wall.
I agree. No, there wasn't a Halloween episode last year.
There wasn't?
No, I didn't post it. I still have it in my backlog of things to edit.
Oh, no.
I'm so sad. So we'll look like we missed a year.
Maybe we can post these as a double feature.
I think we might post them as a double feature.
Was last year Scream or was last year Halloween?
It was the one at the house. Yeah. The boyfriend. It was like an accomplice. 2 people.
Okay, so you are definitely spoiling Scream right now.
Oh no! Sorry, spoilers for Scream. I would say you should have watched it last year, but sorry about that.
But yeah, so anyway.
We're going to have one on the 30th and then one on November 1st.
Why would you skip the 31st?
Oh. Because I forgot that October has 31 days. 31st and the 1st.
maybe 30th and 31st makes more sense.
31st makes more sense as well. Good.
So yeah, I think it's time to go over the spoiler wall.
I think so too.
At this point too. And do our summaries.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And get my lab.
And I would say we don't even have to go over the spoiler wall for this one because you knowing that it's a horror movie
gives you
I looked at this on IMDb and the spoiler for what happens toward the end of the movie is in the summary.
Don't look at IMDb, everyone.
I mean, this is a movie where I think knowing the vibes going in is really helpful, but knowing what actually happens,
climax,
yeah, there's enough that's left off screen that just makes it like really, really interesting to like try to pick out which characters know things and which ones don't, and all of that kind of stuff.
Agreed.
Anyway, summary for this movie.
Do it.
People are mean to Carrie.
Yeah, poor Carrie.
Carrie kills all of them.
Whoops.
And gets pulled down into hell.
Yeah.
There's your summary.
It's real short and sweet, you know? Like, that's a nice and easy one.
It's a 98-minute movie.
It's a 98-minute movie.
Or less. I don't remember.
It's so short. The credits were so short, thanks American New Wave, which I learned from Connor earlier.
If you don't know the American New Wave and you have any interest in film, you need to look into it. Yeah. If you don't have interest in film, why are you watching this podcast? But also,
I feel like at some point you talked about it in a podcast, and so I just need to find it and make it a short.
I'm sure I did.
We'll link it. So summary for this movie. Carrie starts the movie in blood and ends the movie in blood.
That's true.
Carrie starts...
My summary completely ignored theming.
Yeah. Summary, Carrie begins the movie in a shower and like washing herself off, and also ends in shower washing herself off.
She ends in a bath.
Okay, you're right. Washing herself off. It begins with her having to like pray and repent, and it ends with her dying in that same closet. And in the middle, we learn that she has telekinesis for some reason, and that she's generally been abused enough that she's okay with killing an entire school of people. Oh, I guess only 1/4 of the school of people. And the teachers.
1/4?
It was a senior prom.
Oh, yeah.
So it wouldn't have killed every...
Unless some of those seniors had their eyes on juniors or sophomores, and I'm going to ignore the fact that they might have had their eyes on freshmen.
Good man. Don't date the freshmen. Any high schoolers out there that are seniors. Don't date the freshmen.
Sophomores can date freshmen. Mm-hmm. Juniors can sometimes date freshmen. Very rarely. Seniors should not be dating freshmen.
No, don't do it. It's a bad thing. Don't fall for it, freshmen.
The old freshmen can date the young juniors. That's okay.
Yeah, exactly. What? But, so, killed an entire place and also dies herself. Yeah. Very sad.
I don't know if I've said this already in this podcast, or at least this episode. I know I've said it in other movies. This is a movie of lots of tiny perfections.
Yeah, there's just so many small perfect things.
Yeah, and it was hammered home to me so well this time through, where like the one that keeps coming to mind is one that is hard to miss. But it's where Carrie at the end of the movie kills her mom and perfectly replicates the arrows that I genuinely don't understand why the Jesus statue that they have has arrows in it. But anyway, it perfectly replicates like the arc, the arrow that goes in high, and the two arrows that are
in his hands. Yeah. Also, did you notice that Jesus has the same hair as the mom?
I did not notice that. I've seen this again at least 3 times, probably more.
It is essentially the same hair as the mom has.
Wild.
And I think that was probably intentional on the mom's side, unfortunately. There's a lot of interesting spiritual motifs in this one that like I was picking up on, and it's just real intense.
The other thing that I really liked, and this is something, I don't know how much of it can be owed to the original book, the screenwriter, the director, or just the original book having it and the other two being very good at communicating them. Every single character in this movie feels like a real person, which is always the thing that I am saying Stephen King does best. It is.
You're right.
It is the main reason that I enjoy reading Stephen King. Like, I like horror. Stephen King does one thing better than horror, and it's make you feel like a character is real before you hit the bottom of the page that he introduced the character on.
It's very true.
You haven't read any Stephen King. What are you talking about?
I've heard it's very true from you.
As someone who hasn't read this particular book, I don't know how good he was on his debut with this. But it feels like every character has their own motivations, their own things that they know and don't know, their own desires. Like everything that you think of makes a person that you can put into a story feels like it is there with all of these characters, with the exception of growth, but that has more to do with the fact that, like, we're not really following these characters, number one, for very long.
No, it's
and number
days.
Two, we only get glimpses of most of them.
Yeah.
The one that is the most perplexing to me, by far, is Tommy.
Yeah, really? Tommy's the most most perplexing?
Most perplexing. I don't think he's the most complex.
Nope, I was about to say that, and I was like, no, he's not.
Yeah, he's not the most complex, but I think he is the most perplexing. Because he is the hardest one to nail down exactly what his values and motivations are.
Yeah.
Because when we're introduced to him, he says that Carrie sucks.
Yeah.
Then he is hesitant when, I assume Sue is his girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
When
That's
Sue,
what I'm thinking too.
Yeah. When Sue asks him to take Carrie to the prom.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of, or at least
By the time
pretty
they're
early
dancing,
in the prom, I genuinely feel like he is happy to be there with Carrie.
Yeah.
And is having a good time. Like, at a certain point, he seems to switch from very reluctant to very genuinely happy to be there.
Yeah.
But I can't really nail it down, and it's really making me want to read the book.
Nice.
So that I can just know what's going on in his head.
If it was only a 98-minute movie, I'm sure it's a short book.
Maybe. I don't know. I read Salem's Lot last year, and I'm reading The Stand this year. So
nice.
I will get to Carrie eventually.
Perfect. I don't know either one of those, so...
Salem's Lot was really good. Salem's Lot was his second book.
Oh, cool.
And it was a take on... It was his version of a Dracula retelling kind of thing. So he basically took the original story of Dracula and he's like, let's set it in a place with or in a small town with a haunted house, essentially.
Yeah.
And it was great. It has one of my favorite of his characters in any of his books that I've read. And I learned this a few years back. I actually do really like vampires. And I didn't realize that.
Interesting.
So the first thing that I realized is I like vampires as wild animals.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
That's one of my favorites.
That's what you were... And whenever you write vampires and things that I've seen, like, that's how you prefer them to be as well.
I prefer them that way. I don't mind them as, like...
The savants.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I dislike certain elements of the way that people sometimes do vampires. I have yet to get to Anne Rice's vampire stuff. She's the one who wrote Interview with a Vampire, which is actually like the first in, I want to say there's like 6 or 7 books that follow these vampires that are all like very sexualized and they're all depressed, sort of aristocrat type.
Okay.
That was initially what turned me off to vampires. I don't know. Maybe she does it really well.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I don't know. I've never read them. But I do like vampires as intelligent, sort of ominous presences.
Yeah.
I think they do a great job of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is why I always like Dracula, is because that's what he is. He is just an ominous presence.
Yeah, at all times.
Anyway, I'm completely getting off into the weeds. Salem's Lot is good. It was my first, well, not my first Stephen King book. It was one of my first Stephen King books, and I still think that is his best book that I've read.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great. She went from witches to vampires.
Oh, this one being witches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, interesting you bring that up. I would make the argument that Carrie is not a witch.
Okay.
And the reason behind that is she has absolutely none of the ritualistic or
tendencies at all.
Yeah. Like nothing that is supposed to make a witch.
Yeah.
Even in like the most mundane sort of ways, like the whole like connection to nature kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like none of those things apply to her.
None of those, which is a very fun.
She is very specifically telekinetic.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. It's a fun backdrop to have, though, because when her mom compares her to a witch, you like start conjuring these images, and then you have to like wrestle with the fact that it's not true.
Yeah.
Much like a lot of what the mom says.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I want to know what she was reading from.
Yeah, I don't know. Because it was not the Bible.
Read that one pretty well, and it's not the Bible.
Yeah. Her mom is kind of the archetype of what bothers me about a lot of Christianity.
Yeah.
Where it is very much I think something, so I basically take in everything that is remotely close to what I think and supports what I think, regardless of what's actually in the Bible or not.
Confirmation bias is the best bias.
Right, yeah. And it's so heavily confirmation biased that new information does not even get looked at critically.
No.
And then it is used as though it was absolute truth.
Yeah.
And that's just wild to me.
Isn't it
like,
crazy?
I don't understand how
Isn't it
anyone
just...
can do that, but I also know that so many people actually do. What I also really appreciate about this movie is that toward the end, you get a very good idea of why she kind of is the way that she is.
And he does a really good job with that. Like,
Yeah.
for every, basically one of the characters, like, you start learning to sympathize, such that at the very end, whenever you have the, like, trauma that Sue is going through, you're wondering, okay, hey, well, who's the actual, like, villain in this story?
With the exception of the girl who I can't remember the name of.
Yeah. Chris.
Chris, yes. Yeah. Chris and her boyfriend.
I think it was
John Travolta.
John Travolta.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was like, what? Okay. I think it was Johnny.
Was it?
Yeah. Which is actually, no, it may not have been, because I think that's too on the nose for it being also John Travolta. But I feel like it might have been.
Yeah, it might have been. Stephen King does a lot of like very stereotypical names, which is part of what makes his characters feel like real, just American people.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're just like,
oh yeah, he even his.
It was Billy.
It was Billy, because you hear his name said a few times.
Yeah. Also, this movie has a few scenes that are just like the introduction
for
to
like
most
2
of this
minutes?
movie
Like
is
3% of this movie is just naked high school girls. Is the idea is high school girls? Like,
I would not say that a third of this movie is that.
oh, sorry, I meant to say 3%.
You might have said 3%. That's still.
Tell me I'm wrong, Connor. If it's 100 minutes,
Okay.
and 3 minutes are dedicated to it.
Fair enough. Anyway, weird just tracking shot through the locker room, which does not make any sense in context of the rest of this movie.
No.
I genuinely think it was just Brian De Palma being like, hey, I've got a whole bunch of young women actors who I can put on screen completely
Why
naked.
Did we do this?
Felt really weird. This was an R.
Okay.
Yeah, it was an R rating.
I didn't know if there was an R rating back then or not.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember when R started.
R rating started, I think, at the beginning of the MPAA. PG-13 wasn't for a long time, and when it first got implemented, it was really messy.
Yeah. I've seen some old PG-13 movies.
Yeah. And there was also a time when, like, PG movies were super weird, where it was like, you can get away with some stuff that you definitely shouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was after the film code was shut down, which was like, it was either approved or not approved, and if it wasn't approved, it basically wasn't getting released.
Yeah.
And the approval was super strict on a lot of things, like even to the point of like, bad guys can't get away with ill-gotten gains.
Whoa.
Or, yeah. Like, there was so much that they were like, you just can't do this. And it's like, I don't know that should be, like, figured into a rating.
Yes,
like,
completely agree.
I'm also coming to this from the perspective of someone who was born in 97 and believes that art should be, for the most part, left to propose the ideas that it feels like it should propose and to contemplate them well. My gosh, this episode is all over the place.
This is all theory, and it's lovely. And it's pumpkin seeds. We should create a pumpkin seed recipe. I want to know what spices you put on your pumpkin seeds, and then we can go and post it somewhere.
I put different spices on them every year. It's all dependent on what I'm feeling.
It'll be such an easy recipe to make.
We will just post this on like a November 1st after I've made all of the pumpkin seeds that I'm going to make for my Halloween movie night.
I love that.
So, yeah.
That's going to be great. Yeah, there's just so much to this movie still, though. Like, you get, like, if you look at it for too long, you notice another thing. Mm-hmm. One of those kinds of pictures.
I will say, Sissy Spacek, who played Carrie, and the lady who played
Teacher?
No, Martha White, her mom.
Okay.
I don't know the name of that actress, but both of them did an incredible job as far as their performances go.
Like, super good.
I don't think there was anyone in this that was necessarily unconvincing, but those two just absolutely nailed their parts.
Absolutely.
The girl who played Sue as well did a really great job.
With hers. Absolutely. And Chris was good.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, she kind of played a similar vibe through almost the entire movie, though.
Agreed.
Same with John Travolta. Like, I think he's I would say he's an above average actor, even. No, he's an average actor.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go that high. I think he's a good actor.
He's good in Hairspray.
I haven't seen Hairspray.
It's very good.
All right. I'll believe you. I think he's a good actor. His character in this was very one note.
Yeah, it was very flat, like, as a person.
And I feel like it fit the character that he was supposed to be playing. Like, he's just kind of the, like, asshole jock kind of character. And it's like, okay, yeah, it makes sense that he would slap a girl for calling him shit.
Yeah.
And that he would be as equally enamored with the same girl seconds later because she is kissing him or sucking on his fingers or whatever.
And other things.
Right. Like, he very much strikes me as, like, in this movie, he strikes me as a high school guy that has too much confidence and too many people telling him that he's great.
I think Chris back to Chris,
mm-hmm.
is closer to a, like, can be seen as a foil for Carrie, because
mm-hmm.
Chris is the kind of, like, girl that Carrie's mom, like, is against, and, like, the idea of that kind of woman.
That's fair.
Do it.
I think that Sue and Chris are almost perfect foils of one another.
Yeah.
Every time we see something that Sue is doing for Carrie, Chris is working in opposition to Carrie in almost the exact same way
mm-hmm.
in a similar time.
I agree.
We see Sue setting up a plan to make her boyfriend go ask Carrie out to go to the prom. At the same time, we see Chris convincing her boyfriend to go kill a pig to fill a bucket of pig's blood, so that when Carrie goes to the prom, mm-hmm. she can have it dumped on her.
Yeah. I like that one too, because
Sue is setting up everything for the prom and telling people, like, why her boyfriend is taking Carrie to the prom. Chris is telling her best friend Norma about what she plans to do with the pig's blood at the prom to Carrie. We get the reveal of them both coming into the gym at approximately the same time. Even though Chris was there from the beginning, we know that she had to be. We get the reveal about the same time that Sue shows up. Like, every time I see Chris doing one thing, I see Sue doing almost the exact opposite thing. Agreed. And vice versa.
I also really like the, like, communication difference between the two. Like, Sue is very cordial with her boyfriend when discussing this plan, and Chris is very coercive and like low-key abusive to hers to get him to do what she wants.
Like, it's hard, even after seeing Sue at the beginning of the movie being just as mean and cruel as Chris was, it's hard to dislike her and her boyfriend Tommy, which Tommy was also pretty mean, despite the fact that, like, we don't get very much of him, and, like, I don't know. I feel like we get a stronger sense of Tommy's character at the beginning. Yeah. Which is, I think, why he's more perplexing to me later on.
I almost want to say that he was saying that the teacher was stupid.
I want to say that, but the more I've watched this, the more I go, like...
Probably because of the camera as well.
Yeah.
Oof.
Anyway.
That's what I was hoping.
Either way, like, Tommy, we get the sense that, like, he's kind of a stuck-up person, and he is willing to insult Carrie, if not to her face, to his own back. Yeah. But once you start seeing him and Sue interact together, it's really hard not to like them.
Exactly.
The moment you see Chris and Billy together, it's really hard to like them.
Exactly. That's crazy. I agree.
Even if our introduction to Billy is him getting a beer thrown to him from a nearby car and drinking it in front of a whole bunch of cops while he's driving.
That's so funny. Oh my gosh. All right. So shifting a little towards, like, maybe overall theme, like, do you have a theory as to who or what the, like, true culprit is? Like, why Sue is still alive when literally everyone else is dead? And why, what the actual larger thing that caused so much destruction is?
Well, very logistically, Sue got thrown out of the gym right before Carrie closed the doors and set everything on fire. there were Chris and Billy who willingly got out. She got thrown out by the teacher whose name I don't even know if we get in the movie.
Mm-hmm. I do once, but
yeah, it's possible. As to the culprit, I think it is twofold.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is the psychology that has been drilled into her by her mother from the beginning of her life, which is entirely based around her mother's own guilt. And doubly responsible is the way that Chris and other high schoolers, peers of Carrie, have treated her.
Yeah.
And to a lesser extent the adults as well, but mostly the peers.
Yeah.
And so I think her mother got in her head and said, this is the way that the world is. This is the way that the people that are around you are. The people around her fed into that lie in such a way that Carrie, being caught in the middle of those two things, was basically left with only one possible way to view the world. And as a result, killed everyone that she could.
Yeah.
Because of those two forces butting heads.
Yeah.
And I think her being pulled down to hell with the rest of the house after she kills her mom is a result of the fact that she sees hope in one area and then it collapses. And then she sees hope in another area and then it collapses and she's left with nothing.
Yeah.
Which is part of the reason that I think this movie has lots of little perfections that just kind of all form together. Like, it makes no sense without a thematic lens why the house should just collapse.
Nope.
After all of this happens.
Exactly.
The only other explanation I can have is that her mother represented the house as well, and so without her mother being alive, the house collapses in on itself.
Which was a structure that she was forcing herself against to give herself structure.
Right, yeah. But that's really, I feel like that's more of a stretch than the idea that she has lost all possible hope and just pulls the house down on her.
Yeah. That'll happen when your mom stabs you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the only thing I would add there is that I think the thematic reason that Sue is saved is that she genuinely, after realizing her first mistake, the rest of the movie is trying to make up for it in some way. Even when she is pulled out by the teacher suspects that Sue is up to something no good. And so throws her out of the prom, and by which saving her.
So, seeing where you're going with this, why was the teacher killed?
The teacher was killed because there is in my opinion, this is just fan theory after watching it once, Carrie has a second superpower that was either thrust upon her by her mom or just another strange metaphysical thing in which those around her, if they are going to be angry with her or if they are going to feel something negative about her, she amplifies it. Which you see...
That seems reasonable.
...consistently through the movie. If there's positive feelings, it's fine.
I would say that it's not a superpower, but otherwise, I'm totally on board with this.
More like a second magic system at play. A second magic element.
It's the same magic system. It's called Ka and a... Sorry, continue.
Which one is this?
Stephen King's universe. It's all...
Really?
It's interconnected. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I love that.
At some point, I will have to put you on...
I know that they're all interconnected. Dang it. I said I'm going to have to read all of them if I know they're all interconnected.
Okay, I mean, there's a lot. Some of them aren't... The connections are not so strong in all of them that you need to. I'll get you a reading order for The Dark Tower, which is his main like epic fantasy series.
Yeah.
And I'll have you read through those.
Cool. Sounds good.
I'm reading through them next year.
Ooh, that's so exciting. Maybe we can do it together.
I read the first 3.
Oh my gosh, there's more.
And then I hit the 4th one, and he does this thing where he backtracks, and he's like, we're going to go through a romance plot that happens before you meet any of these other characters, and I was not prepared for it. And so I went into it not expecting to be reading a romance plot with none of the characters that I had grown to know and love in the first 3 books. And he kind of lost me. Yeah. So knowing that going into it again, I think I'll be better. Also, I am reading some of the other books that I know tie in so that I don't have to be like, oh, this is just a random character that shows up out of nowhere. Like in The Stand, there's a guy named Randall Flagg who is super messed up. But also, he's a main character in the Dark Tower series.
Yeah.
And anyway, I am becoming more of a fan of Stephen King the more I read of him.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That's so cool. I'm looking forward to continue on your journey and me hearing about it. But no, the teacher is killed because while her intentions for Carrie are good, and she's trying to do her best, she takes out her anger in very like aggressive ways, and very similar to her mom, she doesn't necessarily accept new information very quickly. Like, she doesn't accept the idea that Sue could actually be trying to help Carrie and like trying to do something nice for her, for example.
There's an argument that that's adulthood.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I could totally make that argument. 100%. I don't know that I'd argue with that in this movie specifically. I think that that's totally something they're trying to say here.
Yeah.
And so, regardless of why, she dies.
Okay.
That would be my reasoning. That only Sue survives.
I don't know that I would agree with that, mostly because of the fact that we are following from Carrie's perspective through a good chunk of this movie. Absolutely. And especially that scene.
That scene.
Yeah. And so...
That's why I was saying it was the thematic reason and not the... Like, Carrie is thinking through this and she's saving Sue.
I would say thematically it has more to do with the fact that this causes destruction that goes outside of just the people that are culpable.
Yeah.
Like, this is not it is not only the bad people that get caught in this. I would say Tommy, for one, was not someone who wanted to see Carrie hurt.
Yeah.
I would say the teacher is another one who did not want to see Carrie hurt. And yet they both died. And the reason is the damage done by the other students was strong enough
that it just made a larger impact.
That it caused collateral damage.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that one too. That's another good analysis.
Yeah.
Love it.
Anyway.
And also, Sue didn't come out unscathed, obviously. So.
Yeah, that's true. Also, I am usually against jump scares, but after watching you jump at the last jump scare in this movie.
So good. Like,
I am totally on board with them now.
Yeah, right? Like, it's rare for me to get caught by one. I was like, oh no, this is just going to be like, because you can tell it's kind of a dream, but also you kind of couldn't, like maybe it was a flashback. And so they like reeled me in really well on that one. Like, I can go and tell the science afterwards.
I mean, I think part of it, I think part of it is just the way that, like, when you're going into it, it feels very somber.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this is like oh, I tried to help her and I failed. And like, now I'm even seeing some of the nastiness that caused all of this on her gravestone, which is made out of a for sale sign. Like,
also a cross.
Yeah, also a cross. and then like getting pulled into it, it's like it's so
really
good.
It was really, really well done in exactly the way that you should have ended this movie. But boy, did it get me.
Also, it did set a precedent that I really don't like in horror movies, though, which is the whole, like, we do a final jump scare, or not a jump scare, but we do a final scare in the dream of our protagonist. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I've seen it in too many movies where it just didn't work.
It worked really well.
That it's really hard for me to appreciate it as much in this one.
Yeah, but it did work really well.
It did work in this one.
It worked really well in this one.
Like, I'm starting to think you enjoyed this movie more than you gave it credit for.
I gave it 8.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
I gave it an 8 enjoyment. I gave it a 7 technical. I gave it 8 enjoyment.
All right.
And I gave it an 8 spooky.
Oh, your spookiness has gone up.
Yeah, it's a solid 8 now. But no, like, as it was, like, I liked watching it for the themes.
Yeah.
I like you can tell the director did a really good job just, like, going at it.
Yeah.
So, we're almost out of battery.
We are.
So, this is where we need to end.
Yep, that's true. Our next movie is not applicable because this is a special.
Yep, so you don't get to know.
I will say, probably airing before this, we've had a switch, and I think part of the reason is Netflix has gotten Grave of the Fireflies back.
Oh, okay.
So Grave of the Fireflies is next.
Nice.
Instead of American History X. So, anyway, in a panic, I say, how do we end this?
How do we end this?
Happy Halloween!